They say a photograph never lies. But mine did. When I looked at our new family portrait, my heart stopped. My grandparents, the same people who raised me, who once called me their pride, had removed me from the picture. Cropped out, deleted, gone. My cousin Liam was smiling in the spot where I used to stand. The same pose, the same frame, only this time, my face had vanished. I stared at that photo, my hands shaking. It wasn't just an image, it was a statement. A quiet message to the world: Clara Holt no longer exists in this family. I wanted to scream, but all that came out was silence. The kind of silence that burns more than any word could. My grandmother's voice still echoes in my head, calm and cold. You don't belong in this frame anymore. That moment destroyed something inside me. But it also lit a fire I didn't know I had. Because if they could erase me from a picture, I could erase the lies that built their name. And soon, the truth would make its own portrait, with or without them. Growing up in the Holt family felt like living inside a museum. Every smile rehearsed, every gesture measured, every secret carefully hidden behind polished silver and fake laughter. My grandparents, Evelyn and Walter Holt, were the curators of that museum. They believed respect wasn't earned by kindness, but by how perfect we appeared to the world. Every Sunday, we gathered in their grand dining hall, chandeliers glowing above, a long table covered with fine china, and my grandmother seated at the head like a queen. She'd always raise her glass and say, "Family is everything." And everyone would echo her, pretending to believe it. Everyone except me. I tried so hard to fit into that illusion. I dressed the way she wanted, spoke softly like my father taught me, and smiled through the quiet insults Aunt Naomi whispered under her breath. "You're not very photogenic, are you, Clara?" she'd murmur, pretending to adjust my hair before a picture. My cousin Liam would laugh, his smile always earning her approval. He was the golden child, the pride of the Holt name. My parents, Peter and Irene, were different. They were gentle people, kind, but small in the eyes of my grandparents. My father worked for my grandfather's company, though he never got credit for anything he did. My mother often reminded me, "We're guests in this house, Clara. Remember that." And I did. Every time I sat at that long table, I felt like an intruder in my own family. Even the smallest things showed the divide. During reunions, my grandmother would introduce Liam first. "This is my grandson, the future of our family." Then she'd glance at me and add, almost as an afterthought, "And this is Clara, Peter's daughter." It stung every time. Not because I wanted attention, but because I just wanted to be seen. But no one noticed the small cracks beneath the surface. The tension in my father's eyes when my grandfather praised Liam's success, or the way my mother's hands trembled whenever Evelyn spoke. I used to think it was just nerves. Later, I'd realize it was fear, the kind that comes from knowing too much and daring too little. Still, I held on to hope. I believed that if I worked hard, stayed respectful, and kept my head down, they'd one day be proud of me too. I got into college on a scholarship, graduated with honors, and returned home, ready to earn my place in the family again. But something had shifted. My grandmother's smile tightened when she saw me. The warmth that once lingered in her eyes was gone. And when the next family portrait was announced, the one meant to celebrate the legacy of the Holts, I waited for my invitation. It never came. That night, as laughter and music echoed from the mansion across the street, my phone buzzed with a notification. It was the new family portrait, shared by my cousin on social media. Everyone was in it. Everyone except me. And that's when I realized, maybe I hadn't been forgotten. Maybe I'd been erased on purpose. I kept waiting for my grandmother's call. Every year, she personally invited us to the Holt family legacy portrait, a tradition older than I was. It was supposed to be an honor, a symbol of belonging. This time, the silence felt heavier than words. When I finally asked my father if he'd heard anything, he hesitated. "Maybe they are keeping it small this year, Clara," he said, avoiding my eyes. My mother's hands froze on the sink, water running endlessly. That's when I knew, they knew something I didn't. 2 days later, I saw the truth on my cousin Liam's social media, the grand portrait session at the mansion. Everyone was there, my aunts, uncles, cousins, all dressed in shades of ivory and gold. And right in the middle, smiling like royalty, stood Liam beside my grandparents. My spot, gone. My existence, wiped clean. My heart pounded as I stared at the picture. I zoomed in, hoping to find even a hint of me. But they'd replace me entirely. Even the old portraits hanging in the hallway had been retouched, my face blurred, my figure cropped. The next morning, I went to the mansion. I needed answers. Grandma Evelyn greeted me at the door, her pearls glimmering under the chandelier. "Oh, Clara, you shouldn't have come without calling." Her voice was smooth, rehearsed, almost gentle, the kind of tone used to dismiss, not welcome. I held out my phone with the photo. Why wasn't I invited? Why am I not in this picture? She didn't blink. "You've distanced yourself from the family, dear. We only included those who represent the Holt name properly." "Represent?" I repeated, my throat tightening. "I graduated top of my class. I work hard. What did I do that makes me less?" "Less?" She smiled faintly. "It's not about what you've done. It's about who you've become." Before I could respond, Aunt Naomi appeared behind her, smirking. "You always took things too personally, Clara. It's just a photo. Don't make a scene." Just a photo. That's what they called erasing me. I left the mansion that day with my stomach twisted in humiliation. Outside, the autumn air was sharp and cold, and I could still hear their laughter echoing from inside, the sound of a family that had already replaced me. The days that followed were worse. Rumors began to spread in quiet whispers. Naomi told relatives I'd refused to attend, claiming I'd grown too proud for the family. Some even believed her. Invitations to family dinners stopped coming. Texts went unanswered. My father's phone calls to his parents were met with excuses. "They are busy. They are resting. Maybe next week." I started noticing smaller betrayals too. My name was missing from the company newsletter. My father's position, once stable, was suddenly under review. The Holt name that had always felt heavy now felt like a weapon, pointed directly at us. One night, I overheard my parents arguing. My mother's voice trembled. "We should tell her the truth, Peter." My father's voice broke. "No. She can't know. Not now." "The truth?" I stepped out of my room, heart racing. "What truth?" I asked. They froze, exchanging the kind of look that only comes from years of hiding something. My father turned to me, eyes glassy. "Clara, please. Just stay out of it." But I couldn't. Because in that moment, I realized this wasn't just about a photo. It was about power, legacy, and secrets buried under the Holt name. And if they thought erasing me would silence me, they had no idea who I really was. That night, I made myself a promise. I wouldn't just find out why they erased me. I'd find out what they were trying to hide. After that night, something inside me began to shift. I still tried to act normal, to pretend I didn't care, but the air around me felt poisoned. Every family event, every conversation dripping with polite cruelty. When Grandma Evelyn invited everyone for her birthday, my mother begged me to go. "Please, Clara," she whispered. "Just show your face. Don't give them another reason to talk." So I went. I wore the same shade of gold as everyone else, the family color. I even brought her favorite lilies. But the moment I stepped through those marble doors, I felt eyes pierce through me like knives. The laughter softened. Conversations stopped mid-sentence. Aunt Naomi's smile stretched too wide. "Well, look who decided to show up," she said loudly, clinking her glass. "We thought you were too busy for us now." I forced a smile. "I wouldn't miss Grandma's birthday." "Oh, how sweet," Naomi replied, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "Maybe next year, you'll earn your way back into the portrait too." Laughter rippled through the room, sharp and cold. Even Liam smirked, glancing away as if embarrassed for me, not about me. I wanted to disappear, but Grandma Evelyn's voice silenced the chatter. "That's enough, Naomi," she said gently, though her tone lacked warmth. "Clara is family, even if she's been distant." Even if. Those words cut deeper than anything else. Throughout dinner, the small humiliations continued. When they toasted to the legacy of the Holts, my glass was missing. When family stories were shared, every sentence seemed rewritten to erase my part. It was as if I had never existed in those memories. The girl who'd set the table, helped Grandma in the garden, stayed up late comforting her when Grandpa was sick, erased, one polite omission at a time. Then came the final blow. Grandma stood to unveil a special surprise, a framed photo collage of the generations of Holt's success. Everyone clapped as she lifted the cloth. My heart stopped. There it was, the same family portrait, enlarged and perfect, displayed above the fireplace. And there I wasn't. Naomi leaned close, whispering, "Now it's official." The room blurred. My throat closed. My father's eyes found mine, full of apology, but too weak to speak. My mother's hand trembled on her lap. No one stopped it. No one defended me. So I stood up, quietly, my chair scraping against the marble. "Thank you for reminding me where I stand," I said softly. "Or rather, where I don't." A few gasps, some awkward laughter, and then silence. Grandma Evelyn smiled, unbothered. "Clara, dear, sit down. Don't ruin the evening." "I'm not the one ruining it," I said, my voice shaking. "You already did that when you decided I wasn't part of your picture." Her eyes narrowed, sharp as glass. "You should be careful, Clara. Words can destroy families." I met her stare. "So can lies." For a moment, the whole room froze. And then, I turned and walked out, my heels echoing down the marble hallway, each step heavier than the last. Outside, the night was bitterly cold. I stood by my car, trembling, tears stinging my eyes. That's when I saw it. Through the window, Liam was talking to my grandfather, pointing toward me. My grandfather handed him an envelope. Liam nodded. Something was happening. Something secret. Something bigger than a family feud. I didn't know what was inside that envelope, but I knew this: it wasn't just about my exclusion anymore. It was about a truth they were desperate to keep buried. And I had just given them a reason to bury it deeper. A week after Grandma's birthday, an envelope arrived at our doorstep, cream-colored, sealed with the Holt crest. My mother found it first. Her face went pale as she read the embossed letters. "It's from the family lawyer," she whispered, handing it to my father. He tore it open, his hands trembling. His eyes moved across the page slowly, then stopped. The color drained from his face. "What is it?" I asked, my stomach twisting. He didn't answer. He just handed it to me. The words blurred as I read them. "Notice of amendment to the Holt Family Estate Trust." My name, my full name, was listed under beneficiaries removed. I felt my chest tighten, as if the air had vanished. "Removed?" I stammered. "What do you mean, removed?" My father tried to speak, but his voice broke. They've disinherited you, Clara." Disinherited. The word tasted like ash in my mouth. Apparently, Grandma and Grandpa had re-evaluated the family inheritance and decided to exclude any descendants who had not upheld the values and image of the Holt family. It was their polite way of saying, "You don't belong to us anymore." I laughed, a shaky, bitter sound. "Values? You mean pretending? You mean worshipping lies?" My mother touched my arm. "Please, don't say that out loud." They'll what?" I snapped. "Erase me again." I stormed out of the house, my heart pounding so loud it drowned out my thoughts. I drove straight to the mansion. I didn't knock this time. I walked right in. The family was gathered in the parlor, sipping tea as if nothing had happened. My grandparents looked up, startled but not surprised. Aunt Naomi smirked, clearly expecting me. "So, you've heard," she said smoothly, stirring her cup. "It's better this way, Clara. You wouldn't have known what to do with the inheritance anyway." "Excuse me." My voice trembled with rage. Grandma Evelyn set her cup down gently. "You've always been too emotional, dear. Too rebellious. This family requires discipline, grace, control. Qualities you've never quite mastered. You erased me from your portrait, your dinners, your money. What else do you want from me?" I said, fighting back tears. "Respect," Grandpa Walter said sternly. "You humiliated this family when you questioned us in front of guests. You crossed a line." My hands shook. "Respect? You humiliated me. You cut me out of your lives like I was a stain." Naomi chuckled under her breath. "You should have known better, Clara. Not everyone is meant to carry the Holt name." Something in me snapped. "Then maybe the Holt name isn't worth carrying." The room went silent. Grandma's expression turned icy. "Leave," she said quietly, "and don't come back." I stared at her, this woman who once tucked me into bed, who braided my hair when I was little. I searched for any trace of love in her eyes. There was none. Only pride. Only control. I turned toward the door, my vision blurring with tears. You think erasing me makes your lies cleaner, I said. But dirt always finds its way to the surface. No one spoke. Not even my father, who stood frozen behind them, his guilt written all over his face. That was the last time I stepped foot in that house. The days that followed were unbearable. Friends I grew up with stopped calling. Family friends avoided me at the market. Whispers followed me everywhere. She was cut off. She must have done something terrible. No wonder they erased her. Even my father grew distant. He stopped talking during dinner, too ashamed to face me. My mother tried to comfort me, but I could see the exhaustion in her eyes. We were all paying the price for my rebellion, though I was the one left in complete isolation. Nights became longer. I'd stare at the ceiling, my mind replaying every cruel smile, every dismissal, every lie. For years, I'd fought to belong. I'd studied harder, worked longer, stayed silent through their insults. But in the end, it didn't matter. I was never one of them. And yet, as the pain settled into a dull ache, something else began to stir inside me. Rage. Not the kind that shouts or breaks things, but the kind that sharpens, that focuses. The kind that remembers every word, every smirk, every betrayal. One evening, I found myself standing in front of the old family portrait I'd salvaged from my parents' attic, the one from when I was still included. My 10-year-old self smiled back at me, naive and proud. I touched the frame and whispered, "They may have erased me from theirs, but they can't erase me from the truth." Then I noticed something strange, a small signature carved at the corner of the frame. CH 1999, Carr. Mr. Carr, the family lawyer. A memory flashed, him at every family event, always silent, always watching. If anyone knew the real story behind the Holt's money, it was him. That night, I wrote his name down. The plan wasn't clear yet, but the feeling was, I wasn't going to beg for their love anymore. They'd taken my inheritance, my dignity, my place in the family. Now I would take what they feared most, the truth. And when it came out, they'd finally understand what it feels like to lose everything they built on lies. Because that was the night Clara Holt died. And the woman who replaced her was ready to bring the Holts down, one secret at a time. After the disinheritance, the part of me that wanted to cry slowly hardened into something colder, a tool. I stopped asking for pity. I stopped knocking on closed doors. Instead, I learned to listen in the silence where my family thought nothing could reach me. I started small. I revisited every memory, every framed photograph, every offhanded comment. I catalogued slights like a ledger. Names, dates, places. Naomi's laughter in the parlor when she said I wasn't meant to carry the Holt name. My grandfather's curt instructions about appearances. My father's look of helplessness. Each one became a piece of a map leading to what they were hiding. Mr. Carr became the first target. He was always present, a shadow at every event, the quiet hand that arranged wills and deeds. I went through old boxes in my parents' attic and found the signature on the frame, CH 1999, Carr. That tiny mark felt like an invitation. If Carr had his hand on the frames, he had his hand on the papers. I needed the papers. I began to build a network of quiet allies. Sophie, my cousin, was easier to reach than I expected. Fear had kept her mouth shut, but not her conscience. I saw things, she whispered to me over coffee, eyes rimmed with sleeplessness. I helped move boxes from the study once. There were envelopes with names, dates, figures. Her voice trembled. If you do this, be careful. I promised I would. Then came the practical work. I learned to read legalese fast. I traced property transfers online and found breadcrumbs, shell companies, transfers to accounts overseas, documents signed in the dead of night. I recorded conversations, not to trap people in petty fights, but to hold them to the facts when words would otherwise be smoothed over. I saved emails, copies of retouched portraits, and receipts that contradicted the glossy stories they told on the mansion's walls. There were risks. I shadowed Mr. Carr one afternoon and saw him hand an envelope to my grandfather in the library. I followed Liam to a safe deposit box at the bank. I nearly got caught once, heart pounding in my throat, when Naomi almost saw my phone. Each close call tightened the plan, forced me to be smarter, quieter. I stopped leaving paper trails of my own. I used encrypted messages. I met Sophie in places where no one would expect the Holt heirs to be plotting. My grandfather taught me to hide everything. I told Sophie one night as thunder rolled over the city. So I'll dig until I find where he buried it. She looked at me with a new respect. You're not like them, she said softly. You see. The plan took shape in layers: legal, public, emotional. Legally, I secured a consultation with an independent attorney who agreed to look over the documents if we could prove forgery or fraud. Publicly, I reached out, delicately, to a reporter who had once written an expose on old money corruption. He didn't take my call at first, but curiosity can be coaxed. Emotionally, I prepared for the moment that would force the Holts to react. A family celebration where every eye would be on the room, a place where the new portrait would hang proud and unchallenged. I rehearsed my voice until it didn't shake. I arranged the evidence into a narrative that could not be ignored: deeds, signed letters, bank transfers, and an audio clip I'd found of Mr. Carr advising how to clean an inheritance quietly. If I played it in public, the lie would unravel faster than any private plea could. This isn't about revenge, I told myself aloud as I packed the final folder into my bag. It's about truth. And still, in the quiet before I left, I allowed myself a private, fierce satisfaction. I pictured their faces when the projector came on, when the photos and ledgers and voices filled the room like light. I pictured Evelyn at the head of the table, finally exposed. I walked to my car with the files cold against my side. The anniversary celebration flyer in my bag felt like a challenge. My hands didn't tremble anymore. The only question left was whether I had the courage to press play. The night of my grandparents' 50th anniversary arrived, a celebration meant to display the glory of the Holt legacy. The mansion glittered like a palace. Gold drapes, live orchestra, and photographers everywhere. The family had invited half the city, business partners, local officials, even a journalist or two. Exactly what I needed. I wore black, the only one who dared to. My mother squeezed my hand at the entrance. "Clara, please," she whispered. "Don't do anything you'll regret." "I already regret everything I didn't do," I said quietly. Inside, the air was thick with champagne and self-congratulation. My grandmother stood at the center in her diamond necklace, her smile blinding. "To 50 years of honor and success," she declared as glasses clinked. Behind her, a huge velvet curtain hid the new Holt legacy portrait. The same kind of picture I had been erased from. When the music softened, the lights dimmed for the grand reveal. That was my cue. I walked toward the small stage, heart pounding, hands trembling only slightly. "Excuse me," I said, loud enough to cut through the chatter. Heads turned. Naomi's smirk froze mid-laugh. Evelyn's smile faltered. "Clara," she said, voice tight, "this isn't the time." "It's the only time," I replied. "Since tonight is about legacy, maybe we should show everyone the real Holt legacy." I pressed play on the remote in my pocket. The projector came to life behind me, not revealing the new portrait, but a slideshow of scanned letters, deeds, and recordings. The room filled with the sound of a familiar voice, Mr. Carr's. "The assets will be transferred quietly, sir. No need to inform the original inheritor, she's deceased anyway." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The next image showed a forged signature, my late great-aunt's, next to my grandfather's. Then came the audio of my grandmother's voice, calm, sharp. "Make it clean, Carr. The less anyone knows, the better." The room froze. Evelyn stepped forward, trembling. "This is a lie," she snapped. "These are private documents, taken out of context." "Really?" I said, my voice steady now. "Because the property you donated to charity last year, that land wasn't yours to give. It was stolen from your own sister." Naomi stood up, face pale. "Turn it off. Someone stop this." But no one moved. People were filming. Whispers turned into murmurs. The whole perfection cracked before everyone's eyes. My grandfather rose, his voice trembling with fury. "You ungrateful girl. You've ruined us." I took a slow breath. "No, Grandpa. You ruined yourself the day you decided reputation mattered more than truth." I just turned the lights on. For the first time, my father spoke from the back of the room. "She's telling the truth," he said quietly. All eyes turned to him. "They forced me to sign the papers years ago. I was scared. I stayed silent." His voice broke. "I'm done being silent." Gasps filled the room again. My grandmother stumbled back, her hand clutching her pearls. The projector shifted to the final image, the old family portrait, the one they'd erased me from. Only this time, my edited face reappeared. I'd restored it digitally and projected it in full size. This, I said, pointing at it, is what family looks like, even when you try to destroy it.
The silence was deafening.
Then, one by one, the guests began to leave, whispers trailing behind them like smoke.
Reporters whispered into their phones. Cameras flashed. The Holt name was collapsing in real time.
My grandmother sank into her chair, eyes hollow. You've destroyed us, Clara. I looked at her, not with hatred, but with something colder.
No, Grandma. I freed us.
Then I walked out, the music gone, the portrait flickering behind me like the last flame of a dying lie. As I stepped into the cool night, I could still hear my grandfather shouting orders inside. Desperate, helpless.
But it didn't matter anymore.
Because for the first time in my life,
I wasn't invisible.
I was the truth they tried to bury, and I had finally risen from their frame. The morning after the anniversary felt eerily quiet, too quiet for a family that once thrived on appearances and noise. The mansion, once the stage for my humiliation, was now surrounded by news vans and flashing cameras. Headlines called it the Holt legacy scandal. The truth had finally done what I'd always dreamed of, spoken louder than their money.
I didn't go back there. I didn't need to.
The world could now see what I had lived through. The lies, the greed, the betrayal disguised as tradition.
My phone buzzed with calls and messages.
Some from relatives pretending concern, others from people I hadn't heard from in years.
I ignored them all.
I sat by the small lake near my apartment, the same one where my mother used to take me as a child when family dinners became too cruel. The water was still, reflecting the gray sky.
For the first time, I wasn't angry.
Just empty, but lighter somehow.
A soft knock on my door that evening broke the stillness. It was my father.
His eyes were tired, but they held something I hadn't seen in years, honesty. I should have protected you, he said quietly. I let them decide who you were. I let fear make me small.
I shook my head.
You were trying to survive, Dad. But I couldn't live that way anymore.
He nodded slowly.
They've lost everything. The company's under investigation.
Reporters are everywhere.
Your grandmother doesn't speak to anyone. I didn't do it to destroy them, I said. I just wanted them to stop pretending.
He looked down.
Pretending is all they ever knew.
Before he left, he said one last thing.
Clara, you did what none of us had the courage to do. You told the truth. After he was gone, I realized something. Truth doesn't always feel victorious. It's quiet, heavy, and sometimes lonely. But it's clean. It leaves room for new air to fill the space that lies once poisoned.
Days turned into weeks.
The Holt name was stripped from their properties, their businesses frozen, their portraits removed from city halls and social clubs. But I didn't feel joy in their downfall, only relief that I no longer needed their approval to exist. One afternoon, I walked past an art gallery downtown. In the display window was a collection of old family portraits from different eras, painted by various artists. They were all smiling, perfect, untouched. I stopped, looked at them, and whispered, how many truths did they hide to look that perfect? I went home and hung a photograph on my wall, not the family portrait, but an old candid one. It was me, my mother, and my father at the lake, laughing, wind in our hair, no posing, no performance.
It wasn't flawless, but it was real.
That's when it hit me. All my life, I'd been fighting to be seen in a frame built on lies. I didn't need that frame anymore. My worth didn't come from their approval, it came from surviving their rejection and still standing tall. As I turned off the light, I whispered the one truth I'd carry forever. They erased me from their picture, but I painted my own, and in mine, I finally recognized myself. The Holts lost their legacy, but I found my dignity. Because in the end, family isn't about bloodlines or names on a will, it's about the ones who don't erase you when you stop pretending. And sometimes, the loudest revenge is peace.